Hey y'all, it's June the 27th, 2017, and shoot, man, I want to holler at some of y'all. There's some of y'all out there who you don't like Donald Trump, or you don't like his cabinet, you don't like the people around him, his posse, if you will. You don't like the policies that they're making and stuff like that. You're out there, you hate Donald Trump. God bless you. You're an American. Do what you want to do. But see, here's the problem. A lot of y'all out there be hating Donald Trump for this and that, and then it's just for any reason, for whatever reason. Whatever Donald Trump does, you're against it, all right? Just understand that. But the thing is, problem is that it gets you bogged down, kind of, in a way, because everything he does is now Hitler, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's kind of distracting. Like, for example, when you think about the Paris Accord, or you think about this and that with like immigration, or you think about his policies as far as uh, natural resources here in America, or all sort of things. Y'all get bogged down with that. You say, "Oh, he's terrible. He's the worst ever." He is absolutely Hitler without the mustache, right? And meanwhile, you're missing the forest for the trees. And at the same time, as a person over here, I know that you look at me and think, oh, he's a Trump supporter. Oh, he's a Trump apologist. No, not really. I just like a lot of things that Trump's doing. I really sincerely do. That being said, there are definite problems that I'm not turning a blind eye to. I don't care who you are. You're not Jesus, all right? So there are some definite problems that are rearing their ugly head as far as the policies that are being created, or the things that are being said, the rhetoric that's being said. There's certain problems occurring right now that are very serious, very significant. And I do not agree with, I don't know if Donald Trump is behind all this. I don't know if his cabinet members or this and that are going rogue. But here's what I want to explain. One of the very serious problems that is occurring, and is occurring right now presently under the Trump administration, is that people like Sean Spicer and that other lady, whatever her name is, they're making mention, like, you know, that they're keeping, for whatever reasoning, they're bringing to the American people's attention, that Syria is in a very serious situation, and that they're keeping an eye on it. All right, Sean Spicer just recently said something about, it was reported allegedly, I haven't seen it yet, the clip, but he allegedly said something about that they heard through the grapevine that Assad, who's the president there over there in Syria, what they heard is that Assad, what he's trying to do is gear up for yet another chemical attack on his citizens, right? That he's fixing to do it again. Now, you might remember in April this past year, Assad was definitely accused of chemical gassing his populace, all right? And then subsequently, Donald Trump, along with others, sent Tomahawk missiles into an air base, all right, that was supposedly delivering the chemicals, all right? I had to describe to you, and I did back then, that from what I had been hearing, none of that made sense. From what I'd been seeing, none of that situation made any sense. First of all, he was widely accused, this president Assad, of using sarin gas on people to kill them. Meanwhile, from what I was hearing from all sort of biophysicists and the like, was that sarin gas it probably wouldn't cause the symptoms that people were experiencing all throughout that particular town that got chemicals all over them. Right? It's not indicative of sarin gas, from what I understood. In fact, it would be more reasonable to suggest that it was actually chlorine gas, which killed these people, and that's obviously a tragedy. Either way, it's a tragedy. However, sarin gas just happens to be much, much more deadly. Like, For example, if you were to get a drop of sarin gas on your skin, guess what? You're dead, dude. There ain't no playing around with that, all right? Chlorine gas is is very deadly in and of itself as well. But however, you had to be exposed to it more to die. And so the whole situation, the way it was being handled by the cleanup crew, if you will, the hazardous cleanup crew, was very indicative of a chlorine gas attack and not a sarin attack. That's kind of important to think about, if you will, because mainstream media and all these television channels done told you is sarin. They said sarin gas over and over and over and over and over, even though they had no idea what they were talking about. Not at all. They were being spoon-fed information just like they were spoon-feeding the people out there. All right, so like I said, in April, you have Assad. He was being accused of doing this to his own populace, the chemical gassing. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't put it past anybody in the world to ever chemical gas people, or maybe even chemical gas their own populace, which is more rare, as you would imagine. But he chemical gassed his own population. That was what he was being accused of. Meanwhile, none of that situation made any sense, because you understand, it's sort of a civil war. There's a lot of insurgency going on in Syria, and it's been that way for a while. All right, so there's a lot of things that obviously Assad would have to deal with if he doesn't want to get killed and taken off his throne or whatever. If he doesn't want to get taken off his spot, you know what I'm saying, he better keep that under wraps. It's sort of a civil war that's taking place in Syria. All right, so that being said, all right, he knows that America constantly be bringing up Syria. He knows that for over a year, Obama had been talking about Syria they just better not use chemical gases, which in a way that's kind of weird. It's weird to think about it, because Assad could bomb people, he could missile people, he could shoot people and stuff. He could do all that, but when he crosses the chemical gas thing, that's when the United States gets all hot and bothered, right? At least that's how it's been playing out, right? So allegedly, Assad goes and chemical gases a community, a town, all right, that was held by what you would call ISIS forces, or rebel forces, whatever you want to call them, people battling the government violently, right? So allegedly, Assad goes and he approves of chemical gassing that whole entire town. All right, and that would not make one lick of sense, because the United States of America already said, you know what, you cross that line and we're going to get involved. So it would not benefit Assad in any sort of way, shape, form, or fashion. And Ron Paul even said this. A lot of people said it. It's common knowledge. It would not benefit him. You cannot imagine a scenario where it would benefit Assad to ever think to chemical gas any of his population. Right? But yet and still, apparently, Assad is a cuckoo nutballs, and Assad just goes rogue and does whatever he wants, starts chemical gassing people, even though he knows it's his own ass if he does it. All right? So none of that made any sense, all right? And meanwhile, there was no sort of evidence being provided to definitely put Assad behind chemical gassing a whole town in Syria, which would not have benefited him in any shape, form, or fashion. Right. Later on, Putin and people in Russia, they came out and said, you know what? Well, you know what actually happened, since that little town was being held by ISIS forces, basically absolute terrorist, savage barbarians were running the town. We hit it with missiles, not us, but Syria, Assad's forces hit it with missiles, because it's a deadly game that they're playing over there. Right? So he hit those ISIS terrorist people, the rebels or whatever you want to call them, hit them with missiles, did not understand that they had a stockpile of chemical gases, which would make more sense, because if they're a terrorist group full of savage barbarians, of course they're going to have chemical gases laying around. All right, so Assad hits some locations with missiles, doesn't realize there is chlorine gas and stuff, and it spills out all over the whole community. Right. This is the explanation that Russia gives, and the thing is, if you're just gonna not take sides, what's most plausible is what Russia is saying. Of course, he would hit the place with missiles. He's trying to kill them. They're trying to kill him. All right, so he hits the town with missiles. The chlorine gas that they have stockpiled, it gets everywhere, dude. Unfortunately, I don't know how you could prevent that if you're Assad at that point. How could you prevent it? How could you know where your opponents are keeping all their chemical weapons? It don't make sense. So he hits it with missiles. The gas goes everywhere and it kills all sort of people. And the United States turns and looks at Assad and says, "Hey, you're chemical gas," and everybody, we know it. We got proof. And then even Donald Trump is buying into this whole scenario. And I'm not saying that this scenario is impossible. What I'm saying is in no way does it make sense. All right, that this would have happened in April, right? So, anyways, Donald Trump, he buys into it, apparently, allegedly. On the surface, he's buying into the whole thing like Assad chemical gas his own people, which would not benefit him. So Donald Trump says, "Oh man, you know what? We're going to have to drop these Tomahawk missiles on the air base." This particular air base, according to Donald Trump and his cohorts, this particular air base is being used to deliver the chemical weapons upon the populace, and so therefore we had to hit it with missiles. Yet again, another layer of stuff that does not make sense. All right, because here's the thing: if they're delivering chemical weapons via this air base, guess what? They got chemical weapons. Or guess what? You start hitting it with missiles. Guess what? The chemicals go everywhere. Do you understand what I'm getting at? How none of this makes sense? All right, why in the world would that be our way of thinking that, okay, they're delivering chemical weapons and for some reason we have to intercede, right? And so we're going to bomb the shit out of all their where they're delivering the chemicals. We're going to bomb it, and who knows where all those chemicals are going to go. So, but that's what we're going to do. None of it made sense back in April, right? So now we're in June, and you have a Sean Spicer. And I have to understand that Donald Trump is somewhere in agreement with him, and I gotta ask him why that is. Sean Spicer is saying, you know, after all that whole calamity where we accused President Assad of doing stuff that literally does not make sense and does not benefit him, after we accused him of doing it and sent tomahawks into the air base, we have reason to believe it or not, that Assad is fixing to do it again. This is what Sean Spicer allegedly said just recently. All right, so not only did Assad go ahead and do some stuff militarily that does not make sense to his own people in such a way that it grabbed our attention, our government's attention. Not only did he do that back in April, and get his air base totally tomahawked up. Not only did he do it and it didn't benefit him in any way, shape, form, or fashion, but he's fixing to do it again on maybe a larger scale. And when he does, he can rest assured that Donald Trump and his cohorts and everybody, all these warhawks are going to absolutely put boots on the ground in an unprecedented way over there in Syria. So what Assad would effectively be doing is gassing his people in order to make sure that he absolutely gets wiped off the map. All right, Assad would have to be so incredibly insane that he just loves and enjoys gassing his own people so much that he doesn't care that it's his own ass. All right, he's that nutballs, allegedly, according to America and Donald Trump, and according to them, the next time he steps over the line, guess what? That's the last time. None of it made any sense to begin with. What makes infinitely more sense is that Syria is in a bit of a civil war, a conflict, and there's people who are fighting Assad who probably aren't any better than Assad, and in fact are probably worse than Assad, right? And meanwhile, we're sticking our meddling nose up in it and alleging Assad of doing things that really don't benefit him, don't make any sense, not one lick of sense. And we say the next time you do something that we don't have proof that you done, and the next time you do it, guess what? We're taking out your whole. We're involving ourselves at that point, even though we have no evidence, even though it does not make sense. The next time you do it, allegedly, and we don't have evidence, we're gonna go ahead and basically invade you. Is what the Trump administration is saying, and. You can understand how that might not be good for the American people. Actually, that's probably not putting America first. All right, and I have a serious problem with it. All right, I don't care what your name is. Your name could be Donald Trump. It could be Sean Spicer. Does not matter. None of what you're saying makes sense. Meanwhile, people are over there tripping off of, oh, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. You're bringing up stupid issues like, oh yeah, he might be a Russian stooge. Who cares? He's doing some shit that don't make sense and it don't put America first. And I wanna see an end to it, to be honest with you. And I'm not going to just forget about it. It's not just gonna go in the back burners of my mind. The thing is, we have no business in Syria. We have absolutely no business in Syria. And so we have no business there, and we keep accusing them of stuff that literally makes no sense in order to make sure that somehow we get all involved in Syria. A civil war, even though there's civil wars all across the world that we're not getting involved in, all sort of conflict that we're not getting involved in, somehow, some way, we want to be involved in Syria. All right, oil. All right, and I'm gonna leave it at that. This is June 27, 2017. I'll have to holler at y'all later. God bless you. God bless America. All right, America first.